I never expected my daughter to stand up in court for me. Her words changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The courtroom was packed. The air was thick, heavy. I could hardly breathe. My heart pounded in my chest, an anxious drumbeat, drowning out the whispers that bounced from wall to wall. Everyone was watching. I felt my humanity stripped down to just the cold metal of the chair beneath me and the suffocating heat of judgment pouring from every eye. There she was, my daughter, my shining light through the darkness. But today, she looked like a storm. Her usually bright eyes were dark with worry. I could see her trembling hands clutching the edge of the table, trying to gather courage. The moment stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. I wanted to reach out, to tell her it was going to be okay, but my voice was lost in the chaos of my own failure. They were accusing me, the whispered allegations swirling like vultures overhead. I had made mistakes, terrible ones that had shattered our family. I was guilty, but I was desperate to protect her, to shield her from the scars of this mess. And yet, the truth hung in the air. No matter how much I tried to cover it, the reality was bleeding through the cracks. She stood up. Silence flowed through the room as all eyes turned to her. I felt my heart race, fear gripping me tighter than anything. Would she speak the words that could shatter the last fragments of our fragile lives? Or would she defend the man I had failed to be? The tension was electric, buzzing, pulsing. No one took a breath. "I believe he deserves another chance," she said, her voice trembling but rising with unexpected ferocity. I thought I saw a flicker of hope, a moment of redemption. But it was brief. So many things hung heavily in the air. Secrets hidden deep, betrayals that could destroy us. I questioned if her belief in me was sincere or a desperate plea to hold on to something that was already gone. The prosecutor leaned forward, eyes glinting with determination, ready to strike. "Do you truly think he's capable of change?" The question sliced through the room. The words echoed. Could I change? Could I become the father she so desperately wanted? As I locked eyes with my daughter, the trembling in her hands seemed to echo my own uncertainty. Then, before I could compose myself to answer, the courtroom doors swung open. A figure stepped in, familiar yet enigmatic. The room buzzed with whispered conjectures. Who was this person? What would they reveal? My heart lurched. Perhaps this was the twist my life needed, or another nail in my coffin. What were we hiding? What truths were about to unravel? As the air crackled with tension and the eyes shifted to the newcomer, I felt the weight of my daughter's belief pressing down on me. Was I ready to face whatever storm was about to hit? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air in the courtroom thickened as the figure stepped forward, a sense of dread and uncertainty settling in the pit of my stomach. My heart raced, not just from fear, but from the flickering threads of hope intertwined with desperation. Who was this person? A witness? An accuser? Or perhaps a savior? "Your Honor," the newcomer said, their voice steady, cutting through the tension like a hot knife through butter. I couldn't yet make out their face, the lighting casting shadows that made them appear more like a specter than a human being. But as they moved into the light, I recognized that familiar expression, a mix of determination and sorrow. It was my estranged sister, May. The room shifted slightly with the collective intake of breath. Surprise rippled through the audience like a wave. I had thought her gone from my life forever, never expecting her to step forward now. The implications swirled in my mind. My sister was part of the Patan unresolved chapter that weighed heavily on my heart. I had hurt her too. The rift between us had been a wound festering for years. "Your Honor, I have pertinent information regarding the defendant," she stated, her eyes darting between me and my daughter. I felt my daughter's hand squeeze mine under the table, a squeeze filled with uncertainty and a hint of concern. "Proceed," the judge replied, adjusting their glasses. "That I was witness to a momentum moment that may illustrate who he truly is," May continued, her voice unwavering despite the tremor in her hands. "Before everything fell apart, I was there the day he tried to change. A wave of memories crashed over meth day I had tried to quit drinking. The morning ID thrown out all the bottles and promised my daughter a clean slate. But had it worked? Clearly not. That I saw him fight against his demons. The man he could be, she said. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I sensed a flicker of hope. Could her words do something? I don't want to idealize him. I know he struggles. But he's not just a criminal. He's my brother. More murmurs rose, swirling like storm clouds overhead. The prosecutor's face tightened, a predator sensing a shift in the tide. Would you say he's demonstrated a consistent pattern of this change? Or are you merely deflecting? May hesitated, her resolve faltering for just a heartbeat. He is human, with faults and flaws. But I believe what? The prosecutor interrupted, his tone sharp. That he deserves another chance? Or that he's worthy of your faith? Because I ask you this, lady, would you trust him at your table? Her eyes turned to mine, searching, pleading. My heart raced. Did I even trust myself? Would the memories I'd tried to bury resurface in this moment? I could see my daughter's brow wrinkle with worry, mirroring the tempest brewing inside me. The dangers of this moment were layered, not just for me, but for all of us. My life was filled with the wreckage of relationships, the ghosts of abandoned dreams. I watched as my sister stood at the precipice, ready to tear down the last remaining barriers around us, and I felt exposed. Perhaps trust is not about being faultless, May finally said, her voice softening. Perhaps it's about being willing to try. To keep trying. That I wanted to shout. Didn't she see the darkness within me? How could she stand there defending what I was? But her sincerity melted some of the ice around my heart. Maybe here, with this testament of struggle and hope, there lay a way for my daughter to escape the suffocating grip of my failures. This could be the first real chance for redemption. As the judge leaned forward, expression unreadable, my daughter squeezed my hand even tighter. I fought to contain my emotions, battling the tempest inside me. Could I really change? Was there still a chance for a future forged anew? But before I could wrestle that thought into anything concrete, my sister pressed on. I've come to say that we are family. Despite the distance, he is not alone in this. And suddenly, just as I thought we might delve deeper into reconciliation, I glanced at the door, where two officers entered, one holding a folder with the word evidence stamped boldly across the front. My heart sank. Dread washed over me again. Excuse me, Your Honor, one officer said, cutting through the moment. We have obtained new critical evidence in the case against the defendant. The air seemed to shift again, swirling with uncertainty. My heart dropped as I faced the shadows of my past. The worry etched deeply on my daughter's face, turning into something darker. I could sense the impending storm, ominous and unforgiving. My sister's words felt like shards of glass, sharp, promising hope, but capable of cutting deeply. What now? I breathed, the weight of it all crashing down as I braced for the unknown. Would this evidence reinforce what I was trying to escape, or unravel everything we had begun to stitch together? I swallowed hard, knowing the fragility of that moment. And I couldn't shake the feeling that no matter what unfolded next, my daughter would still be watching, holding tightly to the belief that had become a lifeline for both of us, whether it meant saving me or exposing the painful truth she feared but needed to face. The silence in the courtroom grew palpable, every soul caught in a breathless anticipation as the officer approached the judge's bench. My heart pounded painfully against my ribcage, creating a hollow echo in my thoughts. I could feel the weight of my daughter's grip tightening around my fingers, the innocence of her love eclipsed by an impending dread. Your Honor, we have received a tip-off regarding a possible additional suspect in this case, the officer declared, his voice reverberating through the hushed room. I could almost hear the clock ticking in the background, counting down what felt like the moments left in my life dangling precariously over a precipice. I turned slowly to meet May's gaze, searching for answers, but found only a reflection of my growing anxiety. How could this be happening? My heart sank deeper into my stomach as the officer began to distribute copies of the evidence to the judge, lawyers, and jurors, their eyes widening with intrigue. What new version of my life was about to be laid bare before the world? As the judge flipped open the folder, I felt a swirl of chaos rise inside of me. Would these new revelations convict me once and for all, transforming my fleeting moments of hope into an irrevocable truth. My sister's words echoed in my mind. He is not alone in this. But would anybody see the fragmented pieces of who I was, hoping for a chance to be whole again? Your Honor, the prosecutor now said, excitement brimming in his voice. This evidence directly ties the defendant to a series of illegal activities that occurred during the weeks leading up to the incident in question. I request that we examine this in depth. The judge nodded, peering over his glasses at the evidence. A hum of murmurs rippled through the gallery. My mind spiraled. There had been so many dark days, choices made in desperate circumstances. Was it truly possible that in trying to piece my life back together, I had left threads untended, loose ends fraying dangerously? A knot began to form in my throat as the officer continued. We believe these documents link directly to transactions involving your network. There may be more people involved, but the evidence we found places you at the center of a significant operation. I felt my body freeze, each breath becoming more labored, as if the very weight of my past sins was crushing down on me. Each word resonated deeper than the last, unearthing fears that I had tried to bury. Could I be more than just the sum of my mistakes? Or was I destined never to escape the shadows that clung to my footsteps? Just then, I caught a glimpse of my daughter, her face a mixture of confusion and fear. She had believed my sister's words, believed in the glimmer of hope that flickered amidst the chaos. Suddenly, a profound sadness washed over me. I had dragged her into the center of this storm, sought redemption while standing on a precipice of failure. May, I whispered, my voice breaking. What have I done? In an act of unimaginable strength, she took a step forward. All I want is for you to see the good that's left a chance to find it again. But the prosecutor interrupted sharply, redirecting the room's focus. There's a connection here that cannot be ignored. We found recorded conversations, emails, everything you did to shield your actions from your family, your sister, and your daughter. This was not just a solitary endeavor. You were leading something much larger. I felt my pulse quicken. My sister had stepped into the very line of fire. I had created me choices, and my failures were now bearing down on her, on my daughter. What had once felt like an opportunity for redemption now felt like a noose tightening around my neck. Your Honor, I surged up, desperation clawing at my throat. I can explain. These actions stemmed from my struggle-me battle against addiction and despair. I was trying to survive. Is that the excuse you want to use? The prosecutor's voice dripped with scorn. It's not a solution, it's an admission of guilt. In that moment, the weight of my own reality crashed into me. I looked over at my daughter, her wide, innocent eyes reflecting confusion, pleading for clarity. You don't understand, sweetie. I was fighting against my own demons, I implored. I thought I could protect you from all of this. The anger, the betrayal. I thought you'd never have to know. I just wanted to believe in you, she managed, her voice trembling. It was as if I had just driven a dagger through the very trust one fought to nurture in her. My face burned with shame. The tears swelled behind my eyelids, mirroring the storm raging inside me. She deserves better than this, May countered defiantly, standing beside me. She deserves a chance to know her father can change, that we can change. The darkness has been a part of this, but it doesn't define him. Yet the heaviness in the air thickened with every passing second. I couldn't tell if I was stoking a fire or just fueling a descent into chaos. I closed my eyes for a moment, hoping to dissolve that knot of anguish within me, praying for a fragment of strength amidst the cracks. Your Honor, I whispered, my voice breaking again. I want to take responsibility. But I also then the judge cut me off, his brow furrowing as he inspected the documents presented. Let's take a recess while these are examined. And just like that, our future hung in limbo, the echoes of hope and despair clashing against each other. As the courtroom emptied, I caught sight of May's narrowing eyes as she observed the prosecutor, a realization knitting her brows together. Something is off here, she murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. If they're relying on this evidence, we need to dig deeper. There's more beneath the surface, but I was too lost to think. Could trust really be forged within the rubble of chaos? As I stood in that desolate judgment hall, my heart thudding heavily within my chest, I felt the weight of the moment utter something profound, a fracture beneath the surface, an unexplained tremor that promised a new dive into the terrifying depths of our reality. And in that uncertainty, I realized. Desperate hope and looming darkness often walk hand in hand, tangled in a delicate dance of choice, love, and the unpredictable threads of fate. The recess offered only a fleeting respite, a thin veil over the chaos that loomed just outside the courtroom door. I sank into the cold metal seat, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. May squeezed my hand tightly, the warmth of her fingers attempting to offer me the small comfort I desperately needed. But the stirrings of guilt twisted like vines around my heart, pulling me further into despair. The chair beneath me felt heavier than it should. Outside, I could hear the murmurs of the onlooker strangers who had no stake in my world, yet seemed to hold the fate of my family in their hands. They were whispering about me, about the accusations, the criminal activity that now framed my life. I imagined their thoughts, that I was just another cautionary tale, a father who failed and a husband who faltered. Dad May's voice broke through the fog, trembling as she looked up at me. No matter what happens, I'm proud of you for standing up, for fighting. That I could see the resolve simmering within her. But standing up meant claiming the truth, the unwieldy mass of mistakes that had become my life. But what if the truth isn't enough? I said, the vulnerability in my voice surprising even me. What if this is the end of everything? Then we start over, she whispered fiercely, her determination flaring like a beacon in the dim light. That's what matters. That's what I believe in. The moment felt suspended between past and future, a defining point where my choices could still shift like shadows in the wind. But as I gazed into my daughter's eyes, the steadfastness caught like a lifeline, promising a chance even in the depths of this abyss. The sound of the gavel broke through my thoughts, breaking the spell of that moment. The judge returned, settling into his chair, the demeanor calm, yet commanding. My heart pounded as I prepared for the onslaught of truths already clawing their way back to the forefront. Court is back in session, he declared, nodding at the prosecutor who had lingered like a hawk waiting to strike. I sensed the tension ripple through the room. The new evidence loomed like a dark cloud, ready to drench us in despair once more. The prosecutor sprang with renewed vigor. Your Honor, may I direct the court's attention to the content of the seized communications? We have transcripts of your calls and messages conversations revealing your extensive knowledge and management of these illegal operations. That I held my breath, the reality pressing like a stone in my chest. Would they understand that I had grasped onto fleeting whispers of hope, even when the likelihood of redemption seemed eclipsed by my history? As the prosecution dissected my past with ruthless precision, my mind drifted dangerously back to a moment nearly forgotten, but hauntingly vivid. The last night I had my son with me before everything shattered. The rush of regret filled me as I remembered the warmth of his laughter, how he had looked up to me with unblemished adoration. I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you needed, I muttered under my breath, though the words were swallowed by the cacophony of the courtroom. Mr. Thompson, do you have any defense to offer against these accusations? The judge probed, pulling me back from the depths of nostalgia. Your Honor, I started, my voice trembling. What you hear is only part of the story. There are battles here that extend beyond the text. I hesitated, painfully aware of the vulnerability entwined with my admission. I was desperately lost. Addiction wrapped me in chains and whispered lies until I barely recognized myself. But with every ounce of me, I was fighting to find a way back to the truth. To my family, a brittle silence consumed the room, stark against the fierce volume of my words. I sensed a shift beneath the surface, an ember of understanding igniting in the eyes of some jurors. But then, the prosecutor struck, articulating my past with cold precision, framing me as a calculated villain rather than a man enmeshed in turmoil. That I, in the end, he asserted, isn't it true that you preferred your delusions over facing consequences? Before I could respond, the door at the back swung open with an unsettling force. A figure emerged, drawing every eye in the courtroom. My breath caught as I recognized him. It was Thomas, my estranged brother. I hadn't seen him in years, and the sight of him sent ripples of unanticipated hope mixed with fear coursing through me. Objection, Your Honor, Thomas shouted, taking a bold step forward. If we are talking about redemption, let's also speak of the events that led to the choices he made. The judge looked taken aback, clearly unprepared for this scene unfolding before him. My heart raced as I watched my brother step into the light, his presence stirring a chaotic mixture of hope and turmoil in my chest. What could he possibly bring to this intricate web, this disarray of fate that felt on the verge of swallowing me whole? As Thomas spoke, I felt the voices of despair that echoed around me falter. He revealed pieces of our shared history, the struggles, the shadows looming over us. My heart leapt at the words, standing as a silent testament to the myriad complexities of our lives. But inside me, dread pooled as I wondered, would this act of defense become a weapon, cutting deep into a heart that had already been strained? Your Honor, he concluded, his voice unwavering, there is a bigger picture here. My brother may be flawed, but he deserves a chance to rise above, not to drown in judgment based solely on his past. But the prosecutor retaliated swiftly. Do we really want to listen to the defense of a man who walked away when his family needed him? The barbs landed with precision, and my brother's face fell, rendering the room cold with the weight of truth twisted by bitter context. I felt as though the ground beneath me had shifted, reality swaying dangerously while the specter of possibility dimmed. As my brother's words hung in the air, thick with intention, I couldn't help but wonder what this chaotic twist of fate had truly set into motion. Should I feel hopeful amidst the ruin, or was I merely grasping at strings fraying with every heartbeat? The walls felt as if they were closing in the silence after the storm, ready to unleash another wave of chaos. In that moment of desperation, I grasped May's hand tightly again, my heart thundering with uncertainty. I had gone to war for my redemption, but I feared I was losing ground faster than I could rebuild. And as the renewed tension flooded the court, a new twist hung over Mion I had not anticipated that threatened to unravel everything. But this time, amidst the swirl of turmoil, an unexpected strength bubbled within. Would these threads now intertwine to weave a surprising new beginning, or was I destined to let them slip away, lost amidst the shadows? The only thing I could do was brace for the collision and hold on to the hope lingering at the edge of the storm. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension, a fragile stillness that threatened to fracture at any moment. My heart raced as uncertainty washed over aftermath of my brother's unexpected intervention looming like a storm cloud, dark and heavy. With every word exchanged between the prosecutor and Thomas, I felt the weight of my past press down heavier. Each accusation a reminder of the distance between me and the man I once aspired to be. Mr. Thompson, the judge interjected, clearly unsettled by the unfolding drama. How do you respond to your brother's claims? I opened my mouth, but the words felt trapped inside me, caught in the thicket of emotions thundering around my mind. My fleeting hope entwined with fear, and the shadows of my past clung to my thoughts, heavy as chains. I glanced at May, her eyes reflecting a history wrapped in resilience, and suddenly, the emotions surged forward, not just for my defense, but for the love that had been twisted by circumstance. I am not the man I used to be, I finally managed, my voice cracking as I rallied what strength I could. But I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying to do better for my family, for May. Even when it seems impossible, I carry their love with me. It fights through the darkness that tries to swallow me whole. That a flicker of understanding crossed the faces of some jurors, a momentary flash that ignited within me the hope I so desperately craved. But the prosecutor's ruthless grin cut through, chilling me to the bone. Your attempts at reformation come after the destruction you have already caused. Can you truly say you've changed when your entire life has been a series of broken promises? The gavel pounded against the bench, a violent reminder of the chaos, before the judge's voice broke through the fog once more. Mr. Thompson, let us stay focused. Your past actions are the focus here. What, if anything, do you wish the court to understand about your relationship with your children? I took a deep breath, drawing resilience from the very presence of May, who sat poised beside me, her determination radiating warmth like a beacon of hope amid the encroaching shadows. I know I've hurt them. I know my actions tore our family apart, but every moment is a chance for redemption. Every moment I stand here is an opportunity to show them that I'm not going back to the man I was. I bear the scars of my mistakes, and am ready to fight for their trust, to earn it again. As I spoke, I caught a glimpse of Thomas, my brother, sitting silently. His presence was a reminder of a lifetime spent navigating through grief, bitterness, and fractured dreams. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, a mix of hope and sorrow that mirrored my own. What if he, too, could find solace in this chaos? The murmurings of the courtroom unsettled me, but I tried to focus on my daughter, who now inexplicably became the strength I sought. May, I whispered, I never wanted you to see this side of our lives. She squeezed my hand tighter, as if offering me strength through her unwavering belief. Dad, I need you to understand something, she said, rising from her seat with a conviction that ignited the room into an uproar. You are not defined by your past, by mistakes made in your darkest hours. You are defined by how you are choosing to fight now. Her voice echoed through the chamber, commanding attention like a chorus soaring in the face of adversity. Her words felt like fuel, igniting a lingering flame of hope that lit up the collective consciousness of those around us. But even as I absorbed her courage, a nagging thought clouded my heart. Was this moment a rallying cry, or simply a fleeting gasp before the fall? The prosecutor's sharp retort broke the reverie. How can we trust an unstable man with the lives of his children? Look at how vulnerable you've left them. No. Don't let us mistake your daughter's naive hope as a validation for your inadequacies. His words cut like ice, leaving an imprint of vulnerability, the fear that everything I clung to would unravel before my very eyes. Yet, standing beside me, my daughter wasn't backing down. It's not naive to believe in second chances. My father is fighting to come back to us. He deserves that chance. We all do. It's not just about his past. It's about the love that still exists despite what has happened. The strength in her voice sent shivers through my spine, and I watched my daughter unveil a fire I had always admired while, ironically, never feeling worthy of it. A wave of mixed emotions coursed through me, a pride so profound, yet fiercely intertwined with the fear of letting her down again. Your Honor, the prosecutor interjected, condescending disdain dripping from his words. We cannot allow emotion to cloud the facts. The time for compassion is over. This man has shown his true colors. Let us not forget the devastation left in his wake. The sound of the gavel echoed through my chest, drowning my heart in despair. As I glanced over at May, her hopeful expression began to waver, uncertainty creeping into her eyes. In that moment, the courtroom became a blurry haze of emotions, honesty and darkness clashing, feasting on my deepest fears. And then, like a whisper from the beyond, I felt Domas' hand on my shoulder, grounding me amidst the chaos. You have a choice, brother, he said, his voice low, filled with understanding. Don't surrender to the darkness again. Fight back. Yet as hope rekindled within me, it became eclipsed by a sprawling realization: the price of redemption was steep and fraught with uncertainty. What lurked beyond the choices I made? With the memories of my son lingering at the fringes of my mind, I took in the looming weight of the truth. Within every effort to stand up for my family lay the risk of falling deeper into the shadows. As the prosecution resumed its relentless pursuit, I felt the walls beginning to close in on me once again. What truth was I willing to confront? As I looked at May, tears glistening in her eyes and her heart like glass in the light, a chilling question crept into the corners of my heart: would I shatter under the weight of love, or finally rise from the ashes of despair? The courtroom felt like a cage, the air thick with anxiety, as I struggled to find my footing. Each intense gaze from the jury pressed against my chest like a weight I could hardly bear. May's words lingered, powerful, yet fragile in the oppressive silence surrounding us. But even the bravest melodies can be silenced by the relentless tempo of fear. Mr. Thompson, the judge's voice cut through my swirling thoughts once more. Can you elaborate on what steps you have taken towards change? I could hear the skepticism in her tone, as if she, too, doubted my ability to transform. I clenched my fists beneath the table. I have sought therapy, I asserted, each syllable carved from the stone of my resolve. I attend support groups regularly. I've taken parenting courses, interventions to help mend the scars I've inflicted on my family. The prosecutor leaned forward with an intensity that chilled me. And yet, isn't it true that the impact of your actions cannot be wiped clean by a few sessions of therapy? Your children deserve stability, and you have shattered that foundation. His words were ice, piercing my attempt at reform. The courtroom was alive with whispers, the murmurs darting around like bees, each buzzing question fueling my doubt. Thomas shifted beside me, his face taut with a mixture of concern and indignation. I caught a glimpse of his clenched jaw, a mirror of my own inner turmoil. "Do you truly believe you can erase the past, Mr. Thompson?" The prosecutor challenged, his confidence emboldened by my faltering demeanor. "That I need you to believe that people can change," I implored, my heart racing to keep pace with the torrent of conflicting emotions. "I know I've made mistakes, but I refuse to let them dictate my future. I'm fighting for my children, for their safety, and for their trust." There it was again, the specter of my past rearing its ugly head, threatening to suffocate the glimmer of hope that had begun to flicker deep within me. But as fear threatened to drown out my dreams, I thought of May. Her courage was a beacon, drawing me from the depths of despair, and I could not let her down. "Dad," her voice rang out once more, cutting through the murmurings like a light cutting through the dark. "You've carved out a pathway for us. We just need to stay on it together. I trust you." Her earnest faith was like a salve on my ragged wounds, and in that moment, I realized just how deeply she believed in the possibility of redemption, a belief I hadn't yet found in myself. The prosecutor's face twisted with contempt, yet I sensed the jury's gaze wavering, caught in the visceral storm of our shared humanity unraveling before them. "Your daughter's misplaced affection doesn't change the reality of your actions," he spat, but the accusation didn't land as he intended. Tension hung in the air, but in the charged silence, I sensed a flicker of something more, a crack in the wall surrounding our universe of hurt. "Perhaps," I ventured, feeling the tide of my own courage rise, "but love does have a power that is oftentimes underestimated. We live in a world marred by mistakes, yet it is through love we can transcend those errors." I refuse to discount my capacity for change, nor the possibility that I can reclaim my role as a father. A soft murmur broke amongst the jurors, as though my words cracked through a brittle surface, revealing a warmth they had previously reserved for the bleak narrative of my past. With each breath, I gathered the loose shards of my courage. "That I know the road ahead is going to be filled with challenges," I continued, gazing at Thomas. "But if there's anything I've learned, it's that accountability doesn't only lie in acknowledgement of wrongs. It lies in the commitment to strive to do better every singular day. I've made a pledge to my children. They may not believe in me yet, but I hope to earn that trust back with every step I take." "Your children are already paying the price for your past," the prosecutor snapped, but even he seemed to carry a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Toxicity seeped, but amidst the chaos, there was a gust of fresh air, an opening that I desperately wanted to explore. As far as I could see, the courtroom remained divided, fragments of hope intermingled with desperation. I could feel the remnants of my courage slowly being eroded by the nagging doubts nestled in the corners of my heart. Every sentence weighed with the ghosts of past failures. Throughout this emotional tempest, I noticed a juror shift slightly. Their thoughtful expression reflected compassion that seemed to pierce the layers of contempt surrounding my circumstances. But before I could seize on that flicker of understanding, an alarming commotion erupted from the back of the courtroom. An unexpected figure burst through, his voice laced with urgency. "Excuse me, Your Honor." My head spun. The room transformed into a chaotic whirl. I thought I recognized the silhouette, the tension in the air sending shockwaves through my system. "Who is that?" May exclaimed, her eyes wide. And as he stepped into the light, a chilling realization dawned upon Mimi's son, Alex, had entered the courtroom. The very boy I had fought so hard to hide from this mess. "Dad," he shouted, desperation pooling in his voice. "I don't care about the past. I just want you." Suddenly, the burden of my life choices loomed larger than ever, and in that tormenting moment, I knew my chance for redemption was teetering on a precipice that could either break us apart or bind our hearts together against insurmountable odds. The energy in the courtroom shifted, an electric current running through the air as Alex's words hung heavy in the silence. Faces turned toward him, and I felt every gaze pierce through me, a mixture of sympathy and judgment. How could he be here, shattering my carefully constructed world of solitude and shame? My heart swelled painfully at the sight of him, boy, my light, so innocent and yet burdened by the weight of my past. "Your Honor," Alex stammered, but the judge raised a hand to steady the unfolding chaos. "Your presence is inappropriate at this moment," she said, Her tone firm, but a flicker of concern softened her gaze. You need to be escorted out. No. My voice, laced with panic, erupted before I could contain it. Please let him speak. He deserves to be heard just as much as I do. The room held its breath, caught in the tension between a father's desperate plea and a judge's authority. I felt the glares of the jurors prick at me like sharp arrows, yet I couldn't afford to focus on them, not now. Not when my son was trying to find his way through this storm created by my recklessness. Your Honor, Alex continued, a tremor in his voice. I wish I could show you how much I miss him, how much we all still need him. This isn't just about what he did, it's about who he's trying to be now. I want to give him a chance to fix this. Tears glistened in Alex's eyes, each one a testament to the loss we had both endured, a profound sorrow that connected us even amidst the chaos of the courtroom. Alex, I choked, the rush of emotion rising like bile in my throat. My heart raced as guilt clawed at me. I had always tried to protect him from the consequences of my actions, yet here he was, standing up for me. In that moment, the enormity of his love crushed against the walls I built around my heart. The judge hesitated, glancing from Alex to me, her expression indecipherable. Slowly, she lowered her hand. Very well. You may continue. But I glanced at my daughter, May, whose face radiated a mix of pride and fear. I had committed to this path, but in this moment, it felt as if the foundation I was building had shifted unexpectedly. I'm so sorry, buddy, I whispered, and though my words fell short, I hoped he could read the sincerity etched into my gaze. Alex nodded earnestly, the vulnerability in his eyes revealing a depth of understanding far beyond his years. It's okay, Dad. I love you. We just need to work on this together. In that instant, I felt an anchor in the storm. The world outside this courtroom faded away, and all that remained was the fierce love of my children struggling against the relentless tide of my past mistakes. I wished desperately to give them the stability they deserved, yet doubt nagged at the edges of my hope. Was I too broken to fix what had been so carelessly shattered? Well, face this together, I said, summoning the essence of my being to convey my resolve to both my children. Even if it feels insurmountable now, I will forge ahead for you too. They'll fight. The prosecutor, momentarily taken aback, quickly regained his composure. Don't be swayed by false sentiments. Love doesn't negate accountability. You've led a life marked by irresponsibility, and your son deserves better than to be dragged along with your unfinished business. It was hard to swallow the accusation. Each word felt like a direct punch to my determination. Yet within my heart, I knew I could not let the echoes of the past crush the fragile hope my children had ignited within me. What does better look like? I asked, my voice steady even as my emotions churned violently beneath. Does it mean turning my back on the truth of my transgressions? Or does it mean confronting the darkness and wrestling through it until we can find the light again? For a breath, time stood still. The courtroom held its collective breath, uncertain. But then, the sudden ringing of a phone shattered the silencia, vibrant, discordant tones slicing through the tension, like the crack of thunder interrupting a delicate moment. Both the judge and the prosecutor looked momentarily distracted as a court officer searched his pockets, fumbling to silence the interruption. My heart sank as I sensed the shift in the room's energy. Excuse me, Your Honor, the officer said, visibly flustered as he approached the bench. There's been an incident. We just received information that I swallowed hard, parsing together the words. An incident? My heart began to race again. Panic seizing me once more as visions of my past crashed back, the brutality of my failures threatening to surface, like dark waves swallowing my resolve. The judge's face twisted in concern, and I could see her motioning for order, but I felt adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Please, Your Honor, I cried, the chaotic tension urging me to demand answers. What does that mean? What's going on? Is my family safe? All eyes turned to me, the weight of their attention clangorous, waiting for clarity amidst confusion. And as I caught a glimpse of Alex's fearful glance at me, my heart sank. What new peril could expose us, tearing apart the fragile threads of hope that had begun to weave between us? The officer hesitated, the stricken look on his face igniting a fresh wave of dread. What had I done? How far-reaching were the consequences of my past? Would I be forced to witness the unraveling of everything I held dear once more? The whispered rumors shuffled through the courtroom like confetti caught in a gust of wind, but they did little to mask the brutal truth scrawled across the officer's face. "There's been an incident involving your wife," he said, the words falling cold and stark in the charged silence that I stumbled back, my breath hitching painfully in my throat, the sound awful in the stillness. "What do you mean?" I forced myself to ask, even as the dread coiled tightly around my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. "Is she all right?" His hesitation was a thief, stealing precious seconds away, and I could feel the eyes of the room, a silent audience to my unraveling. Alex gripped my arm tightly, and the fear in his gaze fanned the flames of my panic. May's eyes darted between us, confusion marring her delicate features, and I couldn't bear the thought of her being burdened by the weight of my failings. "Please, just tell me." My heart raced, each beat another witness to my desperation. In that moment, all considerations of guilt for my past, the stress of the courtroom, they all faded into the background. My wife should never be the collateral damage of my failures. "Your wife was involved in a traffic accident," the officer finally spoke, the words careless but devastating. "She was taken to the hospital. It's serious, and you might want to serious?" I interrupted, the weight of each syllable dragging me further into despair. "How serious, Your Honor?" The prosecutor's voice broke in, cutting like sharp blades. "We need to maintain order in this courtroom. This is an emotional display but I couldn't hear the words. The world blurred, spiraling around me as the initial shock darkened into an all-consuming horror. I shut my eyes for a brief moment, trying to gather some semblance of control before I flailed into stormy seas of guilt and anxiety. "I have to go to her," I murmured, mostly to myself, Dad." Alex's voice was a tether, pulling me back. "You can't. You need to stay here. It's not safe for you right now." "Safe. Safe," I repeated, a tinge of hysteria creeping into my voice. "Do you think that matters right now? My wife needs me. I need to know she's okay. Let me go, please." May's hand clutched at my other arm, but her expression mirrored Alex's, fearful yet resolute. She had grown up far too fast, and I hated that this trial-me battle had cast shadows over her every step. The tension in the room was palpable, shifting like an unseen tide as the judge cleared her throat, making a bold decision. "I am granting a recess. Mr." She hesitated, glancing at me. "You may step out to attend to your family matters." "Thank you, Your Honor," I breathed, already rising before she had finished speaking, a mechanical response driven by instinct rather than thought. "Wait." The prosecutor shot, fear flickering across his face. I demand that he remain, but I was already moving. Each step a hurried clash of feet against the cool courthouse floor, the sound lost in the maelstrom of my thoughts. I pushed my way outside, shoving through the heavy doors, my heart in a frantic race. Outside, the sun was glaring unforgivingly, reflecting my inner turmoil. How could one moment cradle hope, then toss you back into despair? My family was fractured, and just as I sought to weave together the fraying threads of our lives, another blow came a deeper wound that now threatened the very fabric of my existence. I fumbled for my phone with trembling hands, my fingers numbing as I dialed, praying for a miracle to carry me onward. The ringing felt like an eternity, each tone echoing through my chest like a heartbeat of impending dread. "Hello?" A voice answered, and clarity chipped through the haze. "Is she okay?" I blurted, bypassing pleasantries. "My wife, what happened?" I could hear the hesitation at the other end, the silence stretching like a taut line before the truth shattered through. "Mr. Sinclair, she's in surgery. We're doing everything we can." Surgery. The word struck me like lightning, and my knees nearly buckled beneath the weight of uncertainty. My emotions clashed, rising like the tide behind a broken dam, drowning me in fears that clawed and scratched for release. What if she was hurt badly? What if? Images flashed through my mind of her warm smile, our children's laughter, the life we were slowly rebuilding slipping through my fingers again. That I leaned against the cold exterior of the courthouse, the sun blaring down as though mocking the brittle thread of hope. "But she will be all right, right?" "I have to believe she will be." "I can't make promises," the voice said gently, "but we are working hard." "I recommend you hurry here." The words felt like a riptide, sweeping me under a wave of despair. With every heartbeat, I could sense the violent swell pushing me into the depths of my past, me reckless decisions, the shadows that haunted our lives still creeping into the light I desperately tried to create. As I ended the call, reality crashed over me, vast and unforgiving. What if I had done something differently? What if I had ensured she was safe from the chaos of my life? Would it have changed what was happening now? Guilt mingled with anxiety, fighting for its place in the pit of my stomach, and I struggled to find air against the weight of it. Dad. I looked up to find Alex running towards me, his face pale and concerned. We need to get to the hospital. Yes, we do, I replied, needing the reassurance of his strength as he steadied me. But even as hope glimmered between us, the shadows of my choices resurfaced, the dark cloud of my fractured past clutching at our family with bony fingers. This battle wasn't over. It had taken a new form, and as we made our way to the car, uncertainty hung like a thick veil around me. I couldn't shake the dawning realization that history might be repeating itself, the cycle of pain, showing its ugly face again. The distance to the hospital felt infinite, like a chasm stretching wide between who I needed to be for my family and who I feared I truly was. The weight of my children's love in the back seat was firm, yet tremors of doubt whispered cruel accusations that ricocheted around my mind. And just when a flicker of hope began to crack through the gloom, a familiar name slipped from Alex's lips unexpectedly. Mom's going to be okay, Dad. When she wakes up, we can all talk about this and start fresh. You'll see. His belief sent a surge of warmth through me, but it was still fragile, a flicker against a storm. I turned to meet his earnest gaze, and though I wanted to believe him, the edge of uncertainty turned cold as we pulled into the hospital parking lot. I caught a glimpse of something moving through the corner of my eye, a figure standing slightly apart from the rest outside the entrance. My breath caught in my throat, heart stuttering in realization. Recognizing an old acquaintance from my past, a person whose presence I had only hoped to forget, I felt dread claw up my spine. What was he doing here? What secrets had followed me, poised to unravel whatever thread of hope I still harbored? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, voicing the fear pooling in my stomach. Alex, this isn't over. The sterile scent of antiseptic wafted around me as we stepped into the hospital's bright lobby, a contrast to the darkness that lingered in my soul. I felt suffocated under that shining fluorescent light, as if it illuminated every fault and failure I had ever committed, each memory a weight pulling me deeper into despair. Alex remained glued to my side, steadfast, but I could sense the wave of unease rising between us, the burden of uncertainty hanging thick in the air. Let's just find Mom, he said, his voice small and shaking slightly, as his hand tightened around mine. The way he looked at me, with those wide, worried eyes, pierced through me with guilt. All I could think about was how the chaos in my life had led us here, standing in the belly of yet another storm. The sterile tiles gleamed underfoot as we moved through the corridors, each step echoing with a haunting rhythm. I quickened my pace, heart pounding in sync with the clock, ticking down the seconds until I could finally reach her. The horror of seeing my wife in pain, perhaps even unconscious, gnawed at my insides. What would I say to her? What if she never forgave me? As we approached the waiting room, I was struck by a flood of memories, the laughter of our children filling our home, the warmth of her embrace, the dreams we had shared. Yet, all of it felt misaligned now, as if those moments were echoes from another lifetime. We reached the ward, and I hesitated at the threshold, dread coiling around my limbs. Alex squeezed my hand again, mirroring my anxiety. You can do this, Dad. His faith felt like both a blessing and burden, weighing heavy against my chest. Before I could lose the moment to fear, I pushed through the door, and then I saw her. Lying on the bed, her face a blanket of stitched-up wounds and bruises, she looked so fragile beneath the hospital sheets. I felt the breath leave my lungs as I stepped closer, trying to reconcile the image of the strong woman I adored with what lay before me. Panic lodged itself deep within my throat. Had that been my last chance to see her whole? Mom, Alex called out, his voice cracking, and instinctively I reached out to comfort him, but I was the one who needed it. May had stayed behind with a friend, and I only wished I could protect her from this sight too. Please be okay, I whispered, grasping her limp hand and pressing it against my cheek. The warmth was fading, and I couldn't shake the urgency clawing at my heart. What if it was my fault she was here? Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, and suddenly I felt the weight of 1,000 moments where I could have done better, been better. I thought back to all the conversations we had during those sleepless nights, discussions of the future slipping away from us. Could I bear to lose her now, when we had barely begun to rebuild what had broken? Mackenzie, I murmured, desperate for some sign that she could hear me. I'm here. Just hold on. I felt the warmth of Alex's small hand over mine, radiating hope amidst the alarm ringing in my ears. Crackling static poured from the intercom behind me, and a voice drifted through the air, announcing the arrival of a doctor. I felt my heart hammer wildly against my ribs, thrumming a frantic rhythm in anticipation of news that would change everything. "I'm looking for Mr. Sinclair," a stern voice echoed, and I turned to see a tall doctor entering the room, his expression serious. "I need to discuss your wife's condition." My heart sank. The tightening grip of dread weaved itself tighter around me. She is stable," he interjected quickly. Relief washed over me like a cool wave, though I braced myself for the inevitable. "However, we need to discuss what comes next. There are complications." "Complications?" I asked, trying to steady myself. "She suffered a significant head injury. Depending on how she responds after surgery, we have to consider all possible outcomes." The doctor's eyes were piercing, and in that moment, I felt my world teeter on the edge of a precipice. I could sense the tension rising again, Alex shifting restlessly at my side. The medical jargon flitted by me, words swirling in a haze. My whole life had crumbled with shattered glass, and I couldn't bear the thought of it breaking again this time, in the wake of losing Mackenzie. Just then, a figure silhouetted against the doorway caught my eye, and I turned staring into the face of the very person I had run from, the shadow of my past standing there in flesh and bone. My stomach dropped, and a wave of dread coursed through me. It was Paul, my old friend turned adversary. He wore a look of concern that seemed almost genuine, yet beneath it lay an undercurrent of something darker, something I couldn't define. Why was he here? I had left behind that part of my life, vowing for the sake of my family to steer clear of those who had led me astray. "Just what I need," I muttered under my breath, but I knew that my voice was edged with gold-tipped anxiety. "Hey, man," he started, his hands raising in a placating gesture. "I heard about what happened. I can help you. I need to talk to you now?" I snapped, my mind racing with possibilities, my instincts propelling me to keep my family close. I saw Alex's confusion swirling in his eyes, mirroring my own dread of Paul's reappearance. "I know what you're thinking, but you need to listen." It's important. I wanted to scream. This was a time of turmoil and uncertainty. My wife was lying in a hospital bed, and Paul's voice was unwelcome noise against the dull thud of my heart. "There's nothing for you to help with. Do you even know the truth about her accident?" His words froze me in place. All at once, the weight of his presence shifted, and I felt a sense of dread that something perilously important was about to be revealed. I narrowed my eyes, skeptical. "What are you talking about?" "I think you'd want to know who's really behind it all," Paul pressed, urgency flashing in his gaze. "This isn't just an accident, it's deliberate. She might be in danger, and you don't even know it." My breath hitched. Every thread of my world felt frayed and fragile, and now, a sinister undercurrent surfaced, threatening what little clarity remained. As Alex gripped my arm, the truth of Paul's statement crashed over me. Could my past still reach into this present, tenacious and vile, threatening to shatter the hope I held for my family? What had I brought upon us without even trying? The realization was like a shot of ice pouring through my veins. I had never expected my daughter to stand up in court for me, to battle my demons and fight for our family. To see Mackenzie hurt because of choices tied to my past, my heart lurched heavily, the traumatic history I had sought to bury rising palpably in front of me. "Are you ready for the truth?" Paul asked, and as those words echoed in the suffocating air of the hospital room, I knew something terrible was about to unfurl, something that could shatter the fragile hope woven around my family, and with it, my very soul. I felt as if I had been punched in the gut. My entire world teetered on the brink of despair. Paul's words echoed ominously in my mind, clawing at the already frayed edges of my sanity. The doctors had warned us that complications could arise, but I had never considered that this might go beyond simple misfortune. Was my wife's injury instead ensnared within the vicious machinations of my past? Deliberate? I croaked, forcing myself to meet Paul's eyes, scrutinizing the familiar face of a man who once stood by me in darker times. I had buried that part of my life so deep, had tried to belong to a world where my only battles were with my demons, not with those I once called friends. What do you mean? I have information, he said, urgency lacing every syllable. You know the people you were involved with. They don't forget easily. Someone might be holding a grudge using this chance to hurt you through her. Alex shifted uneasily at my side, the confusion on his face making my heart ache even more. My thoughts spiraled, each fragmented memory of my past colliding dangerously with my present. It was all too much to process, the stress of facing the court, of trying to rebuild my life while now worrying that an unseen hand could still reach into it was unbearable. I can't believe this, I stammered, searching for the disbelief to cling to, but it slipped away like sand between my fingers. She's fighting for her life. How could someone be so cruel? Because they feed off fear, Paul replied, his expression stern. I can help you get to the bottom of this. But you need to trust me. Trust. The very notion felt like a bitter pill to swallow. Fresh on my mind was the wreckage left by trusting him before, the scars running deep. How could I do it again? Yet the very idea of my wife in danger lit a fire beneath the rubble of my past, driving me into action, forcing my own loyalty to teeter and sway. I peered down at Alex, whose hand remained gripping mine tightly. His innocent face was framed by worry, and I realized he had unwittingly been thrust into a world of chaos I had tried so hard to shield him from. It was impossible to contain the rising tide of anxiety that swirled around us. My mind raced, desperation clawing for a way out, another choice that could mend the fractures threatening to consume us. Fine, I finally said, decisiveness unexpectedly tightening the knots in my stomach. Tell me everything. They'll do whatever it takes if it means protecting my family. Paul nodded, relief washing over his features, but I remained guarded, wary of dredging up a life I thought I could leave behind. Let's step outside, he suggested, lowering his voice. We need to talk somewhere away from prying ears. Alex's grip tightened around my fingers as we stepped into the fluorescent hallway, each footfall echoing like the staccato beat of my heart. The rhythm of uncertainty no longer quietened as I weighed the potential risks stacking against our future. Outside the busy waiting area, the cacophony of voices faded into the background, replaced by the sterile sounds of the hospital. I glared at Paul, tension crackling between us. If this is some game, if you are here to play with my family's lives, I'm not, Paul interjected, his tone urgent and firm. I want to see you do better. I have a friend who knows what's happening on the streets. He's kept tabs on the situation for a while now. I can get you that intel, but you need to fight for your wife. You need to be prepared. Prepared for what? More turmoil? The bitterness spilled forth before I could check it. Can't we just focus on getting her home safe? Do you truly believe they will just let go of you that easily? He shot back. Get your head in the game. This is about more than just today. It's about the life you want back, the future you cannot afford to lose. His words bore deep, hammering away at the shell I had formed around my guilt and disgrace. I felt the shifting tide, my resolve tightening around the unfulfilled promise of rebuilding the life I had displaced. Narrows were forming, small gaps of potential filling with light. Now, I could feel the torch of hope flickering, urging me to stretch the shadows. Fine. Let's do this, I said, swallowing the trepidation threatening to shatter my newfound determination. But at every turn, know this. If putting my family first means taking risks, then we do whatever it takes. I won't lose them again. He nodded, a hint of respect resting in his gaze. And for a fleeting moment, we felt like the old friends we once were, bound by something more than brokenness. Then we returned inside, where the cacophony grew louder, clashing against the fragile rhythm of new resolve blooming in my chest. As we stepped back into the waiting room, I spotted a familiar face, a devastating sight. I saw my sister, May, her eyes wide with worry. She was flanked by a friend, grim and taut. Her mixed emotions mirrored mine, an intense cocktail of anxiety and anger swelling within her, as she caught sight of the two of us standing close together. What is going on? She demanded. Just some issues we need to address, I replied, struggling to maintain the resolve shaping my voice. The instinct to shield her from the looming darkness was a habitual tug, but I knew better now. I need to keep everyone safe. Safe, she echoed, her frustration tangible, her eyes darting between us. You're talking about the very people who have turned this life into a nightmare. We can't just let them, she faltered, taking a breath that seemed to settle heavy in the air. I stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. May, I won't let our family fall. I'm going to fight. And then the moment struck where emotions collided. Her gaze softened, anger fading momentarily into recognition. The weight of everything, loss, guilt, failure, was illuminated by the shared understanding that we were all struggling against fierce winds of fate. Suddenly, the silence of understanding was shattered by the hospital intercom. My heart raced painfully. Mr. Sinclair, please report to room 204. Your wife has come out of surgery. My breath hitched in my throat, the weight of apprehension quickening beneath the urgency of my next move. Alex's hand gripped mine tightly, and in that moment, there was both dread and hope, two sides of one crushing coin. Let's go, Dad, he urged, determination igniting in his voice. As we made our way down the corridor, through the labyrinth of walls that had seen far too much pain, I already knew my fears were justified. But I also knew something else was stitched within me, a tenacious strength forged from love that could break through that darkness, a promise I was desperate to keep. I had faced storms before. I would not falter again. I turned to May one last time before entering the room. They'll explain everything later. Together, we will face this. We entered, and the sterile scent greeted me, cloaked in dread, unfurling raw and real as I laid eyes on my wife. Mackenzie lay there, serene despite the bandages covering her wounds, beautifully resilient, even in her frailty. She was alive, breathing, alongside the tumult I had invited back into our lives. The enormity of it washed over me, drowning out everything else. Mom, Alex breathed, and softer than a fragile whisper, her eyes flickered open, struggling against the haze of medication, locking onto ours. Zach, she murmured, her voice barely above a breeze. Yeah, I'm here, I said, stepping closer. I'm right here. The darkness receded momentarily, wrapped in her presence, and in that serene moment, I felt the strands of our shattered life begin to weave together again, slowly but surely. Get ready, Paul's voice echoed in my mind, a stark reminder of the battle that still lay ahead, but I pushed it down gently, letting love reclaim its rightful space. In that chamber surrounded by sterile white walls, hope danced amidst despair, weaving the promise that no matter what else came, I would face whatever storm stood in our way. Together, I whispered, squeezing Alex's hand, both keeping the promise alive and reminding myself that love could be a force no darkness could extinguish. We're together now, I said firmly, before pulling both my children close, and I refused to let anything tear us apart again. As we held on to each other, the flicker of hope ignited anew, refusing to dim as it wrapped tightly around us, stitching the fabric of our souls through this chaotic tapestry we called life. In that moment, I knew, with unwavering clarity, love was the light that would guide us through the storm. No matter what lay ahead, we would endure together,